YouTube, how is everybody doing? Welcome back to the official Rise of Kingdoms Osiris League cast. Now, before we start the cast, very briefly, you guys are about to be part of a little bit of behind the scenes. We're making a small video about how this came to be, and so I'm gonna record you guys for a moment before we start this cast, so bear with me for a moment. Smile for the camera. Let's get that shot really quickly, and then we can move on to bigger, better things. So really quickly, chat, I apologize if you guys are a little bit you don't really know what to do with yourselves. I can understand that. We're just gonna show a little bit of the things in here, how stuff is set up, just for you guys to have a better idea on how we do these things. So bear with me for one more moment as we get this awesome shot of everything we do in here. And of course, the awesome chat right there. Bam. Cool. Sorry, chat. Apologies. Had to get that shot done. Put the camera away and start with the real cast right now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new cast of the Osiris League doubleheader today, and it's a big one. Two big boy matches happening back to back. We're going to look at the boys from OV going up against Legends Gaming. This is sudden death. But before we talk about that match, which will be the first one we cast, let's go take a look at the second match first. White Tigers against NcB. You folks really favor White Tigers to win this one, and truthfully, so far the bets have been very accurate. I wonder if this will be the case once again, as our friend Chiskel Gaming, one of the casters in the Osiris League cast, is going to be on the field fighting with his alliance. White Tigers with a very, very known reputation. These guys are no joke whatsoever. 3 billion power into Osiris League, cruising through their matches, going through everything, waiting for that round of 16 in order to potentially make it up to the next stage. These guys are contenders to make it all the way to the end. I mean, these alliances, really, every single one of them is a good contender to make it all the way to the end. But White Tigers is one of those alliances with such a known reputation that, I mean, truthfully, I wouldn't be surprised to see them at the final, as well as really any of these alliances. They are going up against NcB. NcB is Art of War is an alliance that has been quiet under our radar. Unfortunately, we hadn't had the opportunity to cast them yet. Same goes for OV. Two alliances we hadn't had the opportunity to cast, not because they're not worthy, or not because we don't like them, or not because of anything else, but the fact that they placed themselves through time in matchups that were a little bit conflicting with other matches that were more interesting for the community, that the community seemed to have more interest in. But we're gonna make amends today and show them on the round of 16. First and foremost, OV and Legends Gaming, and after that, White Tigers and Art of War. Briefly about Art of War, 2.2 billion power, I believe that says. Yep, 2.287 billion power. These guys had one loss in their previous match, funnily enough, against OV. It was a relatively close matchup. It was one of those matches where, again, we had a collision in the schedules. It seems like it was a very, very close match all the way through. So hopefully we'll have a show by them today. That is the second match we're casting today. We are doing back-to-backers. That is right. We have two matches back-to-back. What can we do, right? Again, for the 13 UTC, the 1 p.m. UTC time slot, we have two matches happening back-to-back. Well, at the same time, sorry. So we will be, just like previously, looking at both matches. We'll always have that score down below, and we will make moves in between these matches throughout the match to see how all four alliances are doing. But let's get into the meat of things. Let's get into the first cast, the cast that is coming up right now in about 6 minutes. These folks are none other than OV versus Legends Gaming. Now, Legends Gaming, we have casted quite a bit. They've had the very fortunate luck of having very good matchups throughout their Osiris League, and now they're in the top 16. fighting for a spot at the top 8 against one of the alliances that is very underrated, I believe. It is a very underrated alliance, and the bets, interestingly enough, actually show that. Because truthfully, this is one of the most even bets we've seen through the betting system of this week. This is the most even odds we've seen. It's not extremely skewed. It goes to show that there are people out there that are aware of what this alliance is, and they know how underrated they are being looked at. And today we'll have the opportunity to demonstrate to you guys and to show you guys these amazing folks and what they're capable of doing. And so I'm very glad we get a chance to cast them. Even if they lose this match, at least we got to cast them the one time, which is very important. After all, we tried our very, very best to cast every single alliance that made it through. Unfortunately, the way the scheduling worked out, it was really, really rough to cast everybody. Matches colliding with each other, 4, 5, 7 matches at the same time. It's impossible to cast it all. But now we get to see OV. And speaking of OV, these guys are no joke either. They have 2.273 billion power coming in. They went through every single phase and had 2 very close matchups last week and the week before that. But overall, smooth sailing, wins all across the board. A little bit of difficulties in here, but again, these guys were able to overcome the adversity they went through and clutched the win. We see wins all over the place here for the folks of OV. They're going up against Legends Gaming 1. Legends Gaming 1 is the big alliance of Kingdom 196. 2.4 almost billion power. Pretty decently even matchup between these two alliances in terms of power, but don't be fools. These guys are just as strong. There is really the power is very insignificant, and Legends Gaming had, I think, the highest scoring match I have ever seen in my life last week, and that is because they went up against the Pokemons of Kingdom 185, and all the Pokemons, well, someone got to catch them all, and so they did, and nobody was left to show up for the Osiris League. Someone caught them all, I guess. Legends Gaming had a blast going with 101,000 points. I definitely don't think we're going to see that in this match today. And funnily enough, good thing we started the cast a little early, because all of a sudden verification pops. And you guys know how much that verification is annoying. Chat, we know this, right? My goodness, that thing pops up every hour, and ugh. But here it is, verification passed, and now we are about 2 minutes out of this match. We saw in the previous match JWM taking a bottom obelisk away from UCS very, very early on, which set the course on a massive crash in that match by UCS. That first obelisk was a real killer. It was the first nail in the coffin that was very, very effective. Are we going to see the same out of OV, White Tigers, Legends Gaming, or NcB? We're about to find that out very soon. The first thing I would urge you guys to keep an eye on, as we will commentate over that as well, is the first few rallies. We're going to take a look to make sure that the strategy that's been across the board of rallying early on is indeed implemented, and then we'll see if anyone has what it takes to go hit an obelisk, or are they just moving troops on the field. Here's the thing. We've been talking quite a bit about 2 different things here. First and foremost, support marches. You're going to see a substantial amount more Ethelfleds on the battlefield, and if you don't, you know someone is not doing their job right. Ethelfled has become a key part of the success of the top tier alliances, not only in Osiris League, but in KVK as well, and on the open field in general. We expect to see a lot of Ethelfleds, and if you guys notice an Ethelfled on the open field, let us know in the chat. I'm sure you're going to let us know quite a bit, because as the easiest legendary commander, well, the free legendary commander you can get, right? The only free commander you can get. She is as useful as she can be, and even though folks have been sleeping on her for some time, slowly and steadily through the content that's been coming out and the tests that individuals have been doing, man, oh man, she is very, very useful. The second thing you guys are probably going to see quite a bit, maybe, are potential Edwards and Tamaris. And I don't know what the state of the Wuzetians is. I can tell you that both White Tigers and Legends Gaming were not successful in their Lost Kingdom, and therefore the likelihood of them having Wuzetians available is non-existent. I believe NcB also were in the same side as White Tigers, if I'm not mistaken, and so maybe we will see some Wuzetians out of OV, but there is a potential of seeing one Wuzetian at least on the field, and whoever has that will definitely have an advantage. This is a point to keep in mind because some of these alliances won their Lost Kingdoms while others lost, and those alliances will have a massive advantage as they have those Wuzetians unlocked. With that being said, I see that the match is about to start. The watch button should have appeared already. Let's double check and make sure we are good to go. Going into this OV matchup against Legends Gaming, looks like we're set for the matchup, and for our secondary match we are in as well. So all that's left to do is throw it to the open field, and guess what? The Dragothians, 5 infantry marches, are chilling in his city right now. He is, on the other hand, on the field waiting to cast this very intense match that's coming up. So let's go say hi to Dragothian.
Absolutely, Gecko. So glad to be here again. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to have another fine match lined up for you today. We've already had some killer matches in the books since this morning, and wow, I cannot wait to see how this one unfolds. We've got 2 huge alliances again going up against each other. That's going to be the theme of the day every Sunday for the next 3 weeks. So cannot wait to see what OV and LG decide to show us today. I think from the original cast that we've done today, we've noticed some different strategies playing out on the battlefield. It's been exceptional to watch. There's been some high execution from all the alliances that have been participating so far. We've got about 1 minute and 20 seconds as the game preps and things are coming online. Looks like eventually we're going to have that second match show up on the bottom as well for you all so that we can have all the information, all the juice from all the matches, and we're going to be going back and forth as each one plays out. I don't see this match in particular not giving us a good show. These 2 alliances are absolute juggernauts, and even though they don't have a 3 billion plus matchmaking score like a White Tigers, they definitely have the power players to bring to the battlefield, 30 each on each side. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. Let's go to Gecko. Gecko, are you with us?
Hell yeah, my man. We are waiting down the last 35 seconds. As soon as that timer goes away and the top bar will appear, the gates of hell will open up and the bottom area will have the live score. As of right now, all you'll see really is the same timer, so there's no point in having that on the screen. But the second the 20 seconds remaining pass, we're good to go and everything should be there. Taking a quick look at both sides, it looks like, again, you guys have heard this all day long, my friendly neighbors enjoying the holiday with their off-roaders on the streets. I apologize for any background noise you guys might hear. Legends Gaming showing up deep, and so are the folks of OV. We're expecting an amazing battle. The gates have opened. Dragothian, are we seeing the rallies we're expecting?
Yeah, so 5 out so far. I'd imagine maybe a couple more coming out, but 3 from OV on the blue team and only 2 from LG on the red team. Now there's the 3rd one from LG, and there's a 4th one now from OV. So yeah, we're usually looking to see around 7 or 8 rallies. Again, really half of it is to secure your own side obelisks. The other half is to see if you can maneuver some troops on the battlefield and strategically place them either by altars or by the opponent altars, or ultimately as well. We've seen a couple, and JWM match was definitely a prime example. Maybe even capture an obelisk right off the bat and set the opponent on the back foot.
Yes, sir. These guys are no joke. I see Legends Gaming Rally going up against the top. Who are we taking a look at? The top. My brain just went whoop. OV obelisk right here. There's a rally on its way from the folks of Legends Gaming. It doesn't look like they're going for the bottom obelisk belonging to OV, but again, Legends are looking to first of all secure one of their obelisks, take a little bit of front stand on the top area. They are pouring troops out on the field. When I see this outpour of troops, it always scares me because I am sure that someone has a march too many standing out here, which will delay their teleport. As you guys know, obelisks are the buildings which everybody is aiming at right now. They are the ones that allow you to teleport out into the field. And so the problem with this is you cannot have a march on the open field and teleport. And therefore, all these marches on the open field have to find a refuge inside buildings so their owners can push out into these obelisks and migrate out. If you get caught off guard and you're an influential player and now you have to wait a couple of minutes to port, this could be very detrimental. Dragothian, 30 against 29. Where's Legends Gaming?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got obelisks getting captured on both sides. Looks like OV deciding to really make sure that they secure those outposts to start getting those early points, which is very, very solid. Again, getting their second obelisk. LG Gaming doing the same. However, they still don't have those last two outposts. There's one. Imagine the other one's going to get capped very soon. There it is right there. So everything's captured on the initial stage for each side. Varying times there, which will play out a little bit towards the early game from a point standpoint. But we're really going to start seeing some of these rallies hit, and we're going to start seeing some of these clashes in the middle, in between both sides. This is going to be an amazing match. I can already tell there's so many armies on the field. I got a feeling that these arcs are going to be heavily contested between both sides. Not going to be a whole lot of quick captures going if I have any kind of insight into this.
Yeah, it's not a question whether you have an insight or not. It's pretty much a fact at this point. Usually your calls are on spot with the occasional, well, we didn't see that one coming. And one of those we didn't see that one coming was in the previous matchup where 96RZ held onto a Ark of Osiris for way too long. Hopefully the folks from Legends Gaming as well as OV, truthfully, were watching the cast and noticed this huge mistake, and they do not commit the same one. We've talked quite a bit about holding these arcs and that it is important and it is useful to hold on to them for an extra 3,000, 3,500 points in the bank that you're just holding on to. But at the same time, understanding when it's the right time to deliver these arcs is even more important than being able to secure them. If you don't know when that strategy has run its clock, it can be very, very detrimental to your team. And 96RZ found that out the hard way, losing their winning streak on the last match.
Yeah, I've got a feeling this rally that you're looking at on the screen here may actually go all the way to that obelisk. Nope. And just as I say that, they decide to break it. And,
about that insight.
There's the insight, right? So the reason I said that should go to the obelisk is because look at the amount of armies that are sitting there from LG1. They are ready for that. They were ready for that rally to come around that time. With 10 seconds almost left in that building becoming unlocked, now it's up for grabs. I think that at the end of the day, that might have been the right play for OV to do that, because if they can ninja capture that, then all they've got to do is hold it. And there it is. So LG decided to go ahead and cap that, and that's exactly what they should have done. Now we're looking at that obelisk at the bottom, which really doesn't have any buildings behind it. That's why I was saying that probably should have let it go ahead and come on down. There's no cities there yet because there hasn't been captured yet.
Yes, sir. Churros, sitting here with all his marches, did everything he could to hold on to this desert altar, and he did so successfully. OV got a little bit distracted by open field fights, and it cost them this early occupation of this desert altar. The one individual who was aiming at the altar was just a few steps too far, and Churros, who was right there, just clicked and didn't even have to move, just went straight in. It's a weird thing, right? Because on the one hand, the open field combat is still happening, but on the other, that could have been a major snatch by OV, who had a full rally here, right? All they had to do is position themselves close enough, get in, and then all those marches who were unique marches, as they were a composition of a rally, could have filled the desert altar. Now, it's not as easy as it sounds, and in hindsight, obviously, everything is 2020. But you know what isn't 2020? For the first time, I think ever, A Shrine of Life at the top is the last building to get occupied. Legends ninja'd it, and OV instantly said, that is our building. Get away from here.
Yeah, absolutely. So both sides are definitely locked up and looking like they've secured themselves. But when I'm looking on the open field, I definitely see a very strong presence from Legends Gaming, especially at the top side where you're at right now, in between the no man's land there, in between those two areas. And then when I look over on the middle, though, where the arc is, OV's already starting to position themselves right around that Temple of Osiris. And then on the bottom side, we've got a lot of the same from the top. There's about an even matchup between the two as far as number of armies going. Again, I think that really the name of the game from both of these alliances are going to be hold your own, slow push across the map. Both of these alliances are very aggressive, but also very, very strong. So when you've got these two types of alliances fighting each other in Arc League, wow, this is going to be really interesting. I think that ultimately it may come down to a cap or two of the Arc and maybe a little bit of provisioning here and there to make this thing happen.
I have converted him. Chat, can we get some thumbs up in the chat? We finally converted Dragothian into a believer of the provisions. That is right. We saw that 96 RZ versus DSP match go down to straight provisions. That was a very, very tough pill to swallow for 96 RZ. But right now on this match, 8 seconds remaining on this desert altar to be occupied. It looks like most of these buildings will be successfully occupied by all the alliances that are supposed to hold on to them. What I mean by supposed to hold on to them is that the map is a mirrored map, meaning the two sides of the map are equal, and therefore what we expect in a very even match early on is for both sides to hold on to their respective half of the map. And only after these first occupations happen, usually the madness ensues, and it can be found on the top desert altar. Massive open field combat here. Muddy Age 20 with a rally, a YSG led rally. Lots and lots of Richards, Minamotos. And you know what I don't see here, which quite frankly is very disappointing right now? An Ethelfled. Where is the support march? Either team here is going all out with their DPS. Neither of them giving up a march for that support role, which we have been seeing prove itself again and again worth it on the open field, as it doesn't only weaken buildings but also rallies as well as marches on the open field.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't seen that really defining arc that Ethelfled tends to put out instead of the traditional AoE arc that you see from a Sun Tzu or Richard or something like that. But maybe they just didn't get the chance to get that second skill off. Maybe they have her as second instead of primary, favoring having a full troop army, one troop type with an Ethelfled second to still do that debuff versus doing a mixed troop army where Ethelfled being primary would really make it to where you would have to have, if you want to have a solid army on the field, a mixed troop army. That being said, so look at all the different frontline buildings from LG Gaming or Legends Gaming blinking all at the same time. And then now both altars from OV are also blinking with rallies coming in on all of them. And wow, I mean, now the arc's going to start coming into play with 2 minutes left. There's a lot of fighting in the middle. More LG are starting to come up and try and support that push to push OV off of this Ark of Osiris capture that's going to be coming up here pretty soon. It's going to be an interesting match. I don't think this arc anywhere anytime soon with all these armies sitting around it.
Yes, sir. One of the things that were pointed out by the chat, and it is important to notice, is that even though we didn't see an Ethelfled, we do see Hannibals all over the place. Hannibal also a great support commander, but usually we see a combination of both, which is really interesting. Maybe there are some secondary Ethelfleds that we're not seeing. As you mentioned, madness ensuing in the center. I mean, people going really, really crazy in here, and it doesn't surprise us, right? We are used to this by now. But with 1 minute and 17 seconds, it seems to me that OV are better positioned at this point in time, primarily because they are making sure the fight is happening on the red side's portion of the Temple of Osiris. And that means that their side, where Fate Autumn, I think his name is, standing here with a half-eaten Belisarius tier 4 March. He knows that what he needs to do is get that arc to their side and just run. And everything OV is doing is going towards the red side and occupying them and pushing them away from that Temple of Osiris to the point where it will take a few steps before they can capture the arc versus the other March that was here that was straight on the temple.
Yeah, I mean, looking at both of the altars for Legends Gaming blinking, and it's been pretty much a consistent theme for the last 10 minutes. They've sent rally after rally after rally, have OV, and I think a lot of that, even if they don't capture them, which some of them look like they may at least have a shot, even if they don't, though, all those armies that are sitting around those altars are not in the middle, and with 5 seconds left for this arc to pop, that definitely works into the favor of OV being able to capture it. Now, again, we saw a couple of different strategies with the arc today when it comes to capturing it versus keeping it. How long do you keep it if you decide to do that? Really, I think that comes down to each alliance's ability to feel confident in positioning themselves at the correct time in the right volume in the middle to grab this arc. And as I say that, all the fighting in the middle is happening right at the temple.
Yes, sir. And it looks like a little miscommunication going in for the folks of OV, apologies. Fate Autumn, however you say his name, moved away from the arc. And some other individual here with a very beaten up Belisarius tier 4 March was also there, ready to capture the arc. But it seems like a tier 5 player decided that he wants to take a crack at sending his Minamoto tier 5 March to carry this arc. John Wick is about to find out what John Wick usually doesn't find, and that is how to get beaten up. And I think that's who he's carrying the arc right now. Usually John Wick never gets beat up. But, well, he does get beat up, but doesn't die, I guess.
Look at that. Look at this great play that they just did. Sorry to cut you off, but LG just did a rally right behind the arc carrier and broke it right at the end. And sure enough, look at that. They're starting to go ahead and attack the arc carrier right off the bat. That's going to stop OV from being able to bring that back as easily as they were. Good play by LG to make that happen. That's a timing thing that requires a lot of coordination. And then certainly being able to know that they need to start going after the arc carrier versus just the open field marches that are supporting that arc carrier. They've already dropped it. They're doing some more open field fighting. What OV needs to do is go ahead and grab that arc, go ahead and keep continuing to move that back. And at the same time, again, LG has taken that closest outpost that most arc carriers are very familiar with bringing the arc back to. So they can either take them to the sides to go ahead and capture that arc as OV, or maybe even, again, go after that outpost that was just captured by LG. And they've got a couple armies coming right beside it, so that may be their play. Be interesting to see if they're able to actually capture this as quickly as it was looking not 15 seconds ago.
Really interesting thing is while they timed their rally to get to the center and pick up this arc, they also timed 2 other rallies at the top side. Shrine of Life and Desert Altar got rallied at the same time. Shrine of Life at the top looking good. Constantine against Alexander. This rally will probably end by the time this Arc of Osiris ends. These are 2 relatively strong commanders, but infantries are what they're best at, and we know those infantries are extra chunky, extra tanky and capable of holding onto for quite some time. OV going for the Desert Altar instead of the Shrine of War is a big question mark for me, but Legends Gaming, recognizing there is a fault in OV's play, there is 0 defense on these outposts. That's 90 points per minute less for OV. And on top of that, all the primary buildings people usually go to return this arc, to deliver this arc, are out the window for the folks of OV. And listen, I feel like we're in that holiday season, the Halloween update coming up, but really it feels like Christmas with all these buildings blinking all over the place. It's like blue and red lights blinking all over, buildings being hit all over. I believe this arc will get delivered. Which one of these buildings seems to be the most contested right now?
Well, I mean, you've got all those outposts going. I think that the Desert Altar is the right place. So obviously, at this point with the Ark, I would capture it right away. It looks like they were able to pretty soundly capture that Ark. And as you've stated in previous matches, the points only escalate. So if you are the one that tends to be able to capture that Ark one after the other, that's the play. I don't necessarily know if capturing it and keeping it is the right play in that situation. If your strength is those open field battles, being able to take that stuff and then also capture the Ark, like it seems OV was able to do just now, I would definitely cap it. I would definitely get that ball rolling. Go ahead and start refocusing on the outsides to recapture any buildings that may have been lost, like those outposts you were just talking about. All
Mm-hmm.
those blue buildings are blinking. We need to reinforce those, and we need to start sending rallies to get these guys back on their back heels from LG Gaming or Legends Gaming and continue pushing forward. Start thinking about going ahead and bringing your armies to the middle of the field at around that 5 to 6 minute mark. And that's, again, they just captured that arc.
And while they captured that arc, they also overturned an altar, a sky altar up at the top, goes in favor of OV, who now have 1 minute and 20 seconds remaining before they start ticking for points. We see Meteor making the right play, moving away from those cavalries. Now that they have fast caught that altar, they made it down with the speed on the open field. Now it's time to switch up the defense for something that will hold a little longer. Frodo sending some infantries, and those range are coming in just in time to counter those infantries by Frodo. Of course, about 3,000 point lead for the folks of OV and 220 points per minute. There are still 38 long minutes worth of a match. But you know, Dragothian, I think it's time for us to take a quick peek at the other match that's going on right now. You guys
You
can
read
see it
my
at the
mind.
bottom. Exactly, my friend. So let's swap up the match very briefly and take a look at Christmas happening here too. Buildings blinking everywhere. The game is fairly even. Looks like the folks in from the anonymous assassin side are a little bit in the points per minute lead as well as in the general lead, but with a big part of their buildings blinking, I don't know if they can keep holding on to it. And small side note, IKM haven't been watching our streams, have they?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's where we go with that.
That's the answer. Yep.
It seems that's the case. Looking at these arcs, right? So he's running around with the arc. It looks like he's headed more towards the front of their base. So it looks like the folks in blue are going to be deciding to go ahead and hold on to their arc versus capturing it. We just talked about that. But the game is really, really close with the points per minute looking like they will start to hopefully even out here shortly as the buildings start to capture for each side. But so many buildings are blinking right now. It's so hard to keep track of where all the action is. That's a good one right there for sure. That Sky Altar, that's a nice fight. The Desert Altar looks really good too right there. So I mean, wow, everything's looking really, really solid for both sides.
Yes, sir. I'm kind of like hopping in between the buildings to see which one is the one that has a bigger chance of a turnaround. It looks like this Desert Altar has a huge red presence nearby it, and the rally that is doing a good amount of damage. One of the things that you mentioned that I think deserves a lot more credit than we've given it time is the fact that arcs do compound and grow in terms of the points you get out of each one of them. You start with 3,000 and it goes up by 500 points with each arc. Holding on to the first arc, in my opinion, is a relatively big mistake. The reason I say that is 3,000 points is not enough of a lead for you to feel comfortable that you have won this match. So if you ask me, this whole strategy of holding on to the arc is a great strategy, but it is probably more viable from the second, even from the third arc, which are already 3,500 to 4,000 points. The reason for that is you've already picked up the first arc, 3,000 points. If you hold on to another 3,500, you built yourself a small delta to have breathing room. And then the second one is how you win the match, essentially.
Yeah, and I think a smart play that IKM is doing, if this is their strategy and they want to decide to keep the arc on their terms and they want to make sure that they cap it when they want to cap it, I think they've done the right thing. They've brought it back to their base. There's nobody sitting there guarding it. There's no 10 armies sitting there hovering, not doing anything. Because obviously, with those cities being in the base that are still there, and then certainly I'm sure they're provisioning armies around as well, they can come to the aid of that arc carrier if necessary. And then again, how long is it going to take for a decent chunk of the red team armies to come up and come get that, and then again bring that all the way back to their side and get everything going. This is going to be interesting. I think that this is a play that is usually going to win you the game or lose you the game.
I couldn't agree with you more, but the problem for the folks at IKM is that anonymous assassins are holding on to the 4 biggest buildings in the match right now, and they have a pretty big points per minute lead. If they keep this lead, it'll take them a good 10 minutes to make that arc completely obsolete. And with that being said, we're going to keep track of this match on the bottom of the screen. Let's go back and take a look at what's going on with the folks of OV and Legends Gaming, because OV, just like the folks of A, are holding anonymous assassins, are starting to run away with a little bit of a lead on top of the first arc they conquered, they delivered. But hey, Christmas all over the place. It is blinking buildings everywhere.
Hey, if it was green and red, I think we'd be in really good shape. But, we'll take blue and red for now. And certainly maybe a holiday-themed Osiris League is in the works at some point. That would be pretty cool. But other than that, again, I mean, back to this main match that was the headliner for this cast, looking like, again, OV pushing forward, flexing a little bit of muscle. They've got 3 of the 4 altars, lots of blinking things going on, too, with a lot of rallies going around. That being said, that Saladin is looking pretty darn sweet at the bottom at the Shrine of Life. Up at the Sky Altar that you're looking at, that Richard's looking a little weak with not a whole lot of support. So we'll see how these things go. If they can capture that 4th altar in favor of OV, already having roughly almost a 5,000 point lead, 4,500 point lead, having the points per minute total increase, and again, having captured that first arc and more than likely positioning themselves again for that second capture, always looking in really good shape to take this match and run away with it.
Yes, sir. With that being said, we still have 33 long minutes to go. 4 altars turned blue, as on the other match, 1 altar went back in favor of IKM. It seems that after the first arc was delivered, Legends Gaming was a bit shook. It looks like their huge presence that you had pointed out very early on slowly dwindled down, and if it didn't dwindle down, it just wasn't sticking together. It doesn't seem like the plan is 100% solid. I believe that OV are countering a little bit of Legends Gaming's plays, and so Legends Gaming are finding themselves now having to figure out what they're doing. I can tell you that I can see Legends Gaming having a very hard time getting rid of Constantines in buildings, which seems one of OV's favorite plays. It's one of those that we should see very, very often in kingdoms that did not necessarily win their KVK. Now, I'm not saying OV haven't. I don't really know whether they have Uzetian available or not, but Constantine's been out for long enough so that plenty of folks might have already maxed him out. And it seems like it's a very good commander to hold a building with.
Yeah, he was really mainly used as either an open field infantry commander or ideally as a garrison commander. And as a garrison commander with a support tree, that's becoming more and more prevalent as being a primary. I know that a lot of folks usually go with that tried and true Charles, Richard primary, preferably Charles, especially outside of the Arc League, trying to have that maximum defense and maximum tankiness. But with the support tree, you just get so many talents that give you skill damage reduction taken. It gives you healing boosts if you're partnering it up with a Richard or any other type of healing commander. You also get an absolute ton of stats that really benefit a garrison style structure. So support trees, while not necessarily known for being the most defensive garrison build, in combination with a proper garrison talent tree spec as well, are starting to turn into one of the gold standards for holding, especially in Osiris League, holding these structures and at least allowing support to come in and either envelop the enemy or reinforce to help destroy.
So we kind of got on a roll with our commentary and didn't notice that the Ark of Osiris had spawned and it is out on the field right now. There is a massive brawl happening in here. Someone's picking that up. It seems maybe like a Legends Gaming individual. I am correct. Chucky is starting to dip out, trying to move that Ark back a little bit in their favor. One of the things that is very underrated as an Ark carrier is what Chucky kind of failed to do right here, but it's a very viable play. Move that Ark a few inches your way at a time. Now, in this kind of a situation, there's a big boy brawl. Some folks might not be paying too much attention, and you can get away with gaining very small or even very substantial ground, just like John Wick is doing right now, because people are completely missing, getting their eyes off the ball because there is so much fighting happening. They're not keeping their eye on the ball, and John Wick is still slowly and steadily moving that Ark, and even though he did lose it, he marched a few feet, and if every person picking this Ark marched it a little bit more in their favor, that's the name of the game. That's how you control an Ark. It's not only about picking up an Ark when everything is clear. At the top tier, it does not happen. At the top tier, there is no center clear. If the center is clear at the top tier, something is wrong.
Yeah, something's either terribly wrong or it's a strategy that we've never seen before, and I'd be interested to see how that strategy would play out. And also while we were focusing on the middle of the field, just for a second, the right side obelisk for Legends Gaming turned blue for just a moment. I don't know if they were able to swarm it down so quickly. I wasn't even able to go over there and see what happened, but I don't know if it was a ninja capture or something like that. Legends Gaming probably wanting to get as many of those armies on the battlefield as possible. And now, again, that countdown timer on that obelisk has been reset. No more teleports generating, no more points generating. And again, I think that's just playing right into Ovi's playstyle and certainly Ovi's strategy, which is don't let them gain points a lot. Don't let them gain the Ark and just keep them on their back foot. And I think looking at these points per minute totals with 670 points per minute in favor of Ovi versus just 80 for Legends Gaming,
and now down to 50
flawlessly.
Yes,
and now
sir.
50.
Well,
back up to 200.
Yep, and as we finish that sentence, boop, goes up to 200, and everything we said goes out the window. But it's still true. It holds very true. We haven't seen Legends Gaming even out the points per minute game almost at all in the last 20 minutes. It's been a consistent OV hold, and OV are doing exactly what I was talking about. They are inching their way through this Ark. The reason for that is they are, every time that pop-up appears that says John Wick or whoever it is picked up the Ark of Osiris and the Ark on the top left turns blue, the folks start panicking. The folks really start going, wait, we got to keep an eye on that. We got to look at this. That's the kind of things you want to be doing. And while all this is going on, buildings blinked everywhere and they turned blue. I mean, 2 outposts of Legends Gaming turned blue. The Shrine of Life turned blue and now it's back to red. 3 altars still very much in the favor and being held by the folks of OV. One of them is not even taking for points yet. OV looking for another, I believe this would be 62-10, 290 points in a couple of minutes in their favor, and every minute that ticks by. 7,000 point lead is still not the end of Legends Gaming, but this is becoming a little bit rough. And my question to the chat is, who do you guys have as the winners of this match? Leave us a comment in the comments. We'll shout out a few people and see who has whom as the victorious alliance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing you want to pay attention to right now is that they've got both Shrines of War, they've got 3 of the 4 altars, and really the only altar that's of any risk of getting dropped in favor of Legends Gaming is the very left Sky altar, and that's only because they've had a full garrison with Richard Primary sitting there. They haven't had to reinforce it for almost 30 to 45 seconds as they've had a rally and 4 marches hitting it, which is now down to a half full rally and 2 marches that are almost gone down as well. So this garrison has been basically a personification of what we were talking about. Have your armies where they need to be at any time. if you're not able to be there for a certain amount of time, make sure you've got a super tanky garrison to help defend that building with maximum troops. This is a perfect example of that. You've got a Richard sitting there that's been sitting there by itself, no support, finally having some armies come over to help, and that's a Baybars-led rally. Q Akai there, and then also another one coming, another Q person, Brooke coming over as well. Now they're starting to get the reinforcements now that garrison is at about a third health, and with the damage that garrison has done to all the swarming armies, in addition to that rally itself being nearly a third dead too, I think they're going to be able to keep it just because they were able to do what they needed to do when they needed to do it, and that should be enough.
And Dragothian, we're going to have to do a quick jump to the second match right now because madness is ensuing. The folks in blue IKM realized maybe that arc is holding us back a little bit. They delivered it successfully, and now they're trying to gain ground back. For a little while, they picked up a second altar, and unfortunately that second altar really did not last long, and right now they're waiting for the one altar they have to finish locking in their favor so they can start gaining points. It's not this match on the other side of this cast is nowhere near done. It seems like the folks from losing a little bit of the grip on that steering wheel on their driver's seat right now. Still, holding on to 3 altars is very important, even though one of them isn't ticking for points. It is also not ticking for points for IKM, and the timer is going down. The folks at A slowly gaining back and about to take the lead, and this is after a 3,000 point arc of Osiris. And as you and I mentioned more than once during this cast, holding on to that arc seemed to have not helped the folks of IKM whatsoever. It did help them close the gap. They definitely made it back into making this competitive with that arc, but it's not enough to win the match by any stretch of the imagination. And the real question is, what rabbit are they going to pull out of their hat or ace out of their sleeve to make this comeback a reality?
Yeah, so you're looking at the timer, right? So you got about 5 minutes just over for that arc to spawn. You've got blinking buildings, mostly altars as well. If it was me, again, I'd start sending rallies now, while at the same time maneuvering troops into the middle now to make sure that you position yourselves correctly in force, whether you're IKM or Anonymous Assassins. I think that's the best way to go because that's going to keep them occupied, the opponent occupied, while also giving you time to position yourself in the middle. It's tough to coordinate because a lot of times when you ask for that movement, they're like, I'm engaged here, I'm engaged there. And that's usually the case 9 times out of 10. But you got to make it happen because if you can do that with a match that's this close, that's what's going to make that little bit of difference to start separating yourself and giving you a little bit of breathing room. Again, Anonymous Assassin seems to be the ones kind of owning the structure game right now, whereas the blue team, they're trying to make sure that they are at least positioned correctly for the arc, really starting to rely on, IKM starting to rely on having this arc kind of win the game for them. And again, going back to what we were talking about before with holding the arc versus capturing it, if you're going to do that and your opponent is winning the structures game, you want as many arcs as you possibly can, not as few. You need to capture more arcs than the opponent and do it in resounding fashion, not having them try and slow you down. That's the only way you're going to be able to win that kind of a match.
Yes, sir. Anonymous Assassins kind of rocking the boat on IKM's top obelisk. A very strong YSG-led rally. Did significant amount on this obelisk. Now, IKM, of course, as soon as they felt that rocking of the boat, they came out to see what the hell is going on. And guess what? The rally will be taken care of. But this split second where they had to shift their focus onto that obelisk is everything that Anonymous Assassins want right now. They are starting to gain a substantial lead. We're looking at, 360, more than that now. I should have waited a second to say that. 440 points per minute in their favor, and they're gaining more and more. 700 total points lead for them. And for now, Anonymous Assassins' top priority is just keep holding on to buildings and gaining enough of a lead because, yes, the arc is going to spawn it's going to drop in about 2 minutes and 40 seconds. But with this big of a lead in the points per minute game, we're talking 470 points per minute. That's 940 points in 2-ish minutes. Add to that the half. I'm not gonna go into like the halves math. Let's not go there. But let's say 1,100 points to make the number nice and round. That's almost a third of that arc IKM are going for. On top of that, taking that arc back will take more time. I don't know if this arc will leave them with more than 1,000, maybe 1,500 points lead by the time it's done. And that can be taken care of super quickly within 2 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, look at the red. I mean, look at all the red.
Yep.
At some point, they're just going to own everything. So, arcs aren't going to really help you when you don't own any buildings. I do see a lot of IKM in the middle sitting there with the arc waiting to spawn, but on their back foot, right behind them when they're in their own streets, they're losing all their buildings to red. And really, there's only 5 buildings left for IKM to defend. Now they're going to be putting rallies out, having 1 Shrine of Life and 1 altar generating points, and then also to defend. Certainly, they can start to consolidate their defenses, which would be helpful. But at the end of the day, I'm really seeing a huge, huge push from Anonymous Assassins to be able to take over a map like this against an alliance like IKM. That's a very, very big power move. And certainly having the back outpost from your opponent alongside of all of their Shrines of War, most of their other buildings with the altars, and again, the outposts, I think that really all that's left is Anonymous Assassins to step on the throat of IKM. And I think the arc will mean nothing at that point.
Well, regardless, it's not a matter of right now for IKM anything about the arc. It's a matter of what the heck we do to stop the bleeding. The bleeding is just starting to get out of control. Almost 2,000 point lead for the folks of Anonymous Assassins. And truthfully, this arc is about as insignificant as it can be. Even with these, and for the record, it seems like these are tier 4s or tier 5s. I'm not entirely sure if those are tier 5s. But this Dead or Alive March with a Cao Cao will pick up this arc and start crawling his way back. He has nowhere to go. Those outposts don't belong to him. They will belong. It looks like IKM are taking them back. But let's take a look very quickly how long it takes for the march that Dead or Alive currently has to make it anywhere he wants to go. I believe that by the time he gets there, his lead is going to be out the window. And it's even worse than that. These guys are coming in for him, and they're coming in quick.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. They know where their bread is buttered. They know they cannot let that arc get captured as well. They've done a great job with the structures, really taking advantage of IKM trying to position early inside the middle, and have done what they needed to do structure-wise, and now they've positioned themselves correctly to go ahead and go right after that arc carrier. I would not be surprised at all to see some armies on the outside lanes coming from the top as well. There's already buildings being hit all over the place. Why wouldn't they have a couple armies kind of come in from the sides to help out a little bit too? If nothing else than just to sandwich them, delay that arc capture. They're continuing to pressure on the buildings. That's exactly what they need to do. They have multiple different ways to keep the opponent occupied. And while they're occupying, they're also capturing. And that's what's going to win this match. And I think that Anonymous Assassins is doing a great job of all of those things to bring the win home for the red team.
But as soon as you say that, I'm looking at the map, and it looks like the map is just about even. The points per minute don't look like that because there are still a few buildings waiting to tick for points for IKM. If IKM can use this arc to stop the bleeding that is happening right now and kind of like close in the points in general again into their area, into their favor, we're looking at a potential last 5 minutes between 1,000 or 2,000 point difference, which means everything is in play. Points per minute, provisions, Ark of Osiris, everything is in play. If the match usually ends up about less than 3,000 points at the 10-minute mark, everything possible on Earth can make the map, the win change hands within a blink of an eye. Provisions, Ark of Osiris, and building control.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually staring between the cast that we're watching now between IKM and Anonymous Assassins, and I also have the other match that we're watching with OV versus LG, and the map actually looks almost identical. Even the buildings that are blinking are the same. The outposts that are taken are the same. Like it's actually pretty incredible to see. Did these guys talk to each other? Did they coordinate and say, "Hey, this is what our plan is. What do you got?" I'd be interested to hear if that's something that kind of happened behind the scenes. But Arc is just appearing in the other match now too, looking like again that OV has got a very strong position while Legends Gaming is making a push for it. And right now, Legends Gaming does have that Arc as well, and it looks like on the cast that you're watching, IKM is trying to make a move with that arc too. So this is a lot of things that are going back and forth. I think this match that we're watching right now is a little bit closer. The other match has got quite a delta at almost, actually a little over 13,000 points in favor of OV at this point. I think this is the match to watch. I think we should continue watching this one, see how this arc plays out for IKM and Anonymous Assassins.
Yes, sir. I believe you are correct. We will go back into that other match for a few moments later on, just to, first of all, pay our respects to both of these alliances who we started casting, but you know what? Things are going so crazy on this other match, and as much as I like, and I really, really wanted us to stick with the one arc, it is heartbreaking. It is really heartbreaking for me at this stage to miss out on a good match. The previous group stages, I could understand it because, you know, these folks, we had a chance to cast almost everybody in the group stages. But when it comes to this stage, OV have shown their superiority right now when it comes to that match. And they are looking like they're running with this match. And so I don't want them to lose credit for an amazing match. But at the same time, man, oh man, we're looking at 2,200 point difference between the folks of IKM and Anonymous Assassins, and look at the points per minute flipping around. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Again, I think that this match, we said it in all the matches really. These types of alliances that are fighting, they're so large. They've got such quality players that the arc, if they both decide they want it, is not going to be an easy capture either way. Usually, it's going to be a fight like in front of you, where you've got 20 armies on one side, 15 to 20 on the other, or 30 or 40. I mean, it starts to stack up because of the sheer volume of players, with the sheer volume of troops that these two alliances respectively can bring to the table. This arc isn't going anywhere anytime soon. In fact, the red team here is starting to even bring it a little bit farther back to their side, which is just working more and more and more to their advantage, letting them stop IKM from capturing that arc. And then on top of it all, trying to also capture some buildings with tons of blue buildings on lighting up. In fact, two just quickly getting captured, an obelisk and a sky altar on the left side getting captured in favor of Anonymous Assassins. This is quite the match to be watching right now.
Whoops, I was muted. Oh my goodness gracious. What the heck just happened? The altar and an obelisk flip sides, but at the same time, the top side is all blue with the exception of an obelisk. All the shrines, all the buffs are on the blue side. We're talking 10% attack and defense, as well as 50% healing speed. But here's the deal, Dragothian. This is the second arc. It is 3,500 points. IKM are winning as of right now the building game in the sense that they have more shrines. The altars are about even. The big problem here is Anonymous Assassins have turned the tables on this Ark of Osiris and are now carrying it with themselves. So all of a sudden, this IKM extra little thing to get themselves back into a very close matchup can actually become what gives Anonymous Assassins a huge lead, which in 11 minutes is going to be very, very tough to overcome, even with a very decently substantial lead when it comes to the buildings game. And remind you, some of these buildings aren't ticking for points yet for either side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, again, you're still seeing more and more flashing with more and more loading up for each one of their respective alliances capture. It's going to be quite a bit, to manage a points per minute game at this point. You want this arc, you want it bad. It's a close match, roughly 1,100 points. Again, I think not only does the arc come into play, but also provisioning is a huge deal at this point. They need to make sure they're bringing in some provisions. So just in case it becomes that 500 to 1,000 point match that we've been seeing lately, you want yourself to be on the side of the positive when it comes to provisioning the score, so you know you did everything you could to get to that point.
Yes, sir. I couldn't agree more. And as the folks in the chat are keeping us honest, indeed, it was impossible to see who was the score at the bottom. I added the labels. Apologies to you guys watching the stream, and also had to move the camera around so the score is better seen. So apologies for that. Now everything should be set up and ready to go. With that being said, this fight for an arc is really mind-boggling. I have a slight feeling that Arc actually went backwards a little bit, right? Towards IKM in some shape or form. There are so many red marches, and this Arc is not making any progress. It's making very small progress for the folks of Anonymous Assassins compared to the sea of red in here. When you have that big of a dominance in the center, when you have that big of a presence in the center, you should be able to gain a substantial ground, which now it seems like Anonymous Assassins started to get dialed into. But again, that little bit of time it took them gave this individual, a couple of individuals from IKM, time to make their way to the center and try to make their way to the arc carrier. The whole map is blue though, and the lead that the guys of Anonymous Assassins had is down to 400 points. And guess what? Within a minute, they won't be in the lead anymore. And guess what again? Within 5 minutes, that Arc of Osiris will be insignificant. 10 minutes remaining in the match. Boy, oh boy, if Anonymous Assassins don't stop the points per minute game by IKM, big trouble is coming. And Tintin is doing just that on the Desert Altar up on the top. That is about to convert red. Very good play by him.
Yeah, they definitely need to do that. They definitely need to make some plays here. They've got the arc, but like you said, 4 altars in favor of IKM, at least for right now. Looks like it's about to drop to 3. Even though those aren't necessarily generating points yet, they're at least in your favor, which means they're not generating points for your opponent. That's just as effective. It's doubly effective when you can actually fully capture it and start generating points for yourself. So there's 2 pieces whenever you're taking these buildings away from your opponents. It's not just the capture where you start generating points for yourself, but you're stopping them from generating points for their own alliance and their side of the points. So you don't want that to happen at all. If you're LG1, or if you're OV, or if you're IKM, or if you're anybody inside of this, Anonymous Assassins, you're going to want to make sure that you're pushing all these buildings in the hardest way possible, because especially with matches like this one that we're watching right now, with having just a 200-point difference, you want every second to count on these buildings. And that's why you see basically the entire map lit up, blinking. Even the outposts are starting to blink because it's so critical to have those 30 points per minute.
And that bottom Desert Altar was critical. As the second it started ticking for points for blue, it went red. And now IKM picked up that outpost, stopping the march of that arc dead in its track. And look at that. They pick up this arc. Now, curiously enough, they could keep marching towards that outpost. That's a huge risk considering the amount of marches there are by the folks of Anonymous Assassins in here. But look at how many, all these marches are so focused on their own outpost that look at that Arc of Osiris sneaking away. Unfortunately,
wow.
Unfortunately, it's a Alexander with infantry, so that sneaky McSnickerson is not going to make it too far out. But hey, that was a very big turnaround. And by the way, that big lead that the folks of IKM had was with only one of those 3 altars. And now they own 2, and they're maintaining a 410 points per minute lead. And right now, truthfully, Dragothian, with 6 minutes remaining and about 410 points, that is 2,400 points total that they'll gain from buildings, plus hopefully some provisions to keep padding them up a little bit. It looks like IKM are slowly trying to clutch this win. And now, as you said, one of the most important things is to stop your opposition from gaining points. If you ask me, this Arc of Osiris has to be everything for IKM right now. They have to stop it from going red. If they manage to do that, they have a very good chance of winning this match.
Yeah, IKM definitely turned it around. They were down quite a bit there and was looking like Anonymous Assassins were kind of running away with it with the amount of structures they had in their favor. A lot of rallies going out, a lot of swarming happening. Middle action has definitely been intense. And, they had in the middle, Anonymous Assassins, they had a pretty sizable advantage from an army standpoint in the middle. And that's what allowed them to get the arc back as far as they did. But that play from IKM to take that outpost and then force Anonymous Assassins to take that outpost back definitely set them back another 3-4 minutes, because it's going to take at least that much to get that arc back. And honestly, if we're looking at it right now, it's 5 minutes, 20 seconds left. There's not going to be another arc. This is the only arc left. And with it being an 1,800 point game, the arc is the game, folks. The arc is the game. There's three altars in favor of Anonymous Assassins right now, with one capping right now. So they're going to have two total ticking. I don't think the structures are going to do it. You got 5 minutes left with this close of a match. You got 440 versus 180. 5 minutes, even with a 500 point delta, that's only 1,500 points. It's an 1,800 point game. For sure, this arc is going to win the game if Anonymous Assassins can bring it back to a captured outpost. They can certainly win this match with this arc. This is critical.
Quite frankly, at this point, the arc trying to get out of this cluster is probably the biggest mistake. For IKM, the number one goal is for this arc not to make it into the outpost, and for Anonymous Assassins, they have to get it in no matter what. IKM, who picked up the arc now twice and then dropped it due to, of course, the March getting destroyed, shouldn't be trying to get out of the cluster. They should be trying to blend in it. As we know, it is super tough to click on these guys. I mean, hell, I was about to click on that damn arc carrier and then the game froze. So, story of this cast's life. Let's revert very, very briefly to the other match while I fix this up. Apologies for that, but hey, Lilith Gaming, what have you done to us? Oh, I guess you guys can see all of that too. It's okay. I have a boat in the background. It's kind of nice.
Well, the OV match is definitely still well in hand for OV. The points did narrow, so it is less than a 10,000 point game at this point, but it is, again, almost a 10,000 point game. So I think we can pretty much call it in favor of OV at this point, defeating Legends Gaming, and that actually goes against the odds from a betting perspective. So if you bet on OV, you should be winning fairly big today. I know a lot of folks bet on a lot of underdogs this week, and the first couple ones were down to the wire, and they should have won. But then last-second heroics from the favorites ended up clutching the victory.
Oh my God! I caught that as soon as I got in the game. IKM picked up that outpost.
That's it.
Oh my God!
That's
I caught that. I cannot believe I actually caught that. And now the question is, if they can they hold and pick up this arc? Can you imagine them picking up the arc and delivering it on the red side's outpost? How outrageous that would be. I think that at this point, they're just trying to hold on.
That's what they're going to do.
This arc is not enough to win the match. This arc is definitely not enough to win the match. Even with this arc being captured right now, what'll happen is
200 points.
200 point lead. And then the question is, how does this end? As you mentioned, Legends Gaming are going to be eliminated, about 9,000 points in favor of the folks in OV. 2 minutes remaining in that match, and OV in very much control of the points per minute game, as you guys can see at the bottom of the screen. And with that being said, I can't see anything on this outpost. I'm just hoping and praying things work out. It looks like the arc was delivered.
They capped it.
Okay.
They capped it, and now there's a minute and some change left. They've got to be provisioning. The structures mean nothing. At this point, the structures mean nothing. You cannot capture something quickly enough to generate points. Everybody needs to run in provision and fill those buildings with armies so that you can be generating more occupation score. Fighting in the middle of the field does nothing for your alliance. It does nothing for your chances to win.
And as you need to send out
everything.
As you say that, we're looking at the folks of Anonymous Assassins, kind of like a set of ants, that finished eating their meal, just dispersing like crazy. And they know what they need to do right now. They know they got to go out there. They got to get into these buildings. The problem for them is that IKM own most of the map. IKM have a altar that will still probably tick a couple of ticks in their favor. It's nothing significant, but again, at 150 points per minute, that is about 2 and some points a second. Every single point matters, and it looks like they'll have 42 seconds worth of that ticking in their favor, which is a total of 80 some, almost 100 points.
Keep almost folks, a 1,000-point match.
I'm gonna tell you guys this right now. Stop focusing on the center of the screen and focus your eyes up on the top area. Focus on the score. We will not be able to show you the provisions coming in, but you will notice the points growing substantially if someone brings in provisions. So this is when you guys forget about what's going on in here and keep your eyes only at the top. It looks like the folks from IKM did provision a little bit. They are gaining a good amount of points. But again, if Anonymous Assassins have provisions out, they can still come in. 5, 4.
This is going to be interesting. It's coming down.
And
let's see what the final score is.
Oh, not enough for the Anonymous Assassins. IKM, listen, IKM scraped by. Truthfully, IKM scraped by. It was an unbelievable match. They started ahead, then they fell behind, and then they came back for it. A lot of folks found this match to be a lot more in favor of IKM than Anonymous Assassins, and Anonymous Assassins put up a heck of a fight. Big GGs for these folks. GGs, everybody in the chat. Not only for Anonymous Assassins and IKM, but also OV and Legends Gaming, who are going to go take a look at their final scores in a moment. But first, let's take a look at this right here. Oh, what do you know? What won this match? Provision score. The guys of IKM lost Occupation game. They lost to the Ark of Osiris game, but they won the Provisions game. And they kept it close enough so that those caravans are everything that the folks of IKM needed for a squeak by victory, barely about 1,998 points, or maybe 2,002 points. Never mind.
Yeah, I was just saying in chat, the T5 Shiny Farmers win. And again, this is the second match in a row that we've seen that provisioning has played a huge role in the victory for the winners. And good job to IKM for noticing that and certainly being heads up enough to understand that in a close match, provisioning actually does make a huge difference. And if you don't do it versus do it, you're going to be the one that's going to be on the bad side if you're not. And again, if you don't provision, you need to make sure that you are really in control of not only the Ark, but also the buildings. And unfortunately, it was just not quite enough for Anonymous Assassins to pull out the victory with not having quite as much occupation score overall that they needed to make up for the delta in the provisioning score that IKM generated.
Yes, sir. IKM generated more than the next Ark was worth in provisioning. It's interesting to point out that, the amount of troops, effort, time, power, nerves, yelling, mood, everything that goes into taking that Ark when it's a close, crazy match is very, very, very intensive. However, you can gain just as many points by doing something very laid back as provisions. Look at that. A full Ark of Osiris worth of points in provisions in favor of IKM. So again, people are really sleeping on these provisions. It's an Ark of Osiris, even more. I can tell you that I've seen a couple of matches where provisions were over the 8,000 points. That is almost 2, if not more than 2 Arks worth of points for a much more laid back, much less intensive, and even requires much less marches, really, because truthfully, you see so many more marches in the center than marches gathering.
Yeah, absolutely. So IKM winning, good game to both alliances in this match. White Tigers has just begun, by the way.
We need to
that match has started.
we are going to go into that in a second, but we cannot go through. I completely forgot this is the doubleheader. We'll get there in a second. We just want to give a quick shout out to the folks at OV and Legends Gaming, show their scores as well. Legends Gaming did a little bit of the provisions game, lots of healing on both sides of here, but it's a clear victory for OV in the Ark of Osiris as well as occupation score. It was big enough of a gap that the provisions weren't really too impactful. And now, GG's for these alliances as well. Congratulations to the Overlords who played a fantastic match. We need to go watch the Tigers.
Yeah, this is already looking to be a pretty nice match here. Floods of troops coming out. 6 rallies right off the bat, with 4 coming from White Tigers. Some, one led by King of Armenia. We've got 2 coming from NcB right now. It looks like those are both going to their respective obelisks as well. Looks like NcB is going in favor of having just raw troop power come out onto the battlefield. And having been in the Lost Kingdom with both of these alliances and fighting both of these alliances, I can tell you right now, these guys are no joke. Certainly being here in the round of 16 and both of them looking to try and be the one to move on to the round of 8. These guys definitely are looking forward to making this a statement game, because these are 2 huge alliances that have previously, like you said, been alliance team members, coalition members, whatever you want to call it. Now they're up against each other. Everything's on the line. One person moves on, the other one doesn't.
Yes, sir. And it looks like the folks of NcB picking up their occupations first, looking at a first obelisk. These first obelisks are actually really critical. It isn't that big of a deal. We're looking at about 3-4 seconds delta, so it's okay. It's not that big of a difference, but having those obelisks caught ASAP is a huge priority. And truthfully, Dragothian, I have not seen as many Belisarius abuses as I would have expected. As you know, one of the things that Belisarius loves to do is once he leaves a structure, he likes to start running for a little bit. And so, with that being said, if you catch an outpost and really quickly head your way to the obelisk, you have 2 buildings very quickly. And right now, for example, that bottom obelisk by NcB is taking so long for them to occupy it. You will definitely see at the bottom side the folks from White Tigers pushing forward much more aggressive than NcB, because, man, these guys are almost, they're more than a minute behind on that timer, and it's going to be huge when it comes to the teleports. But big problem, Dragothian. Have you noticed it, or should I call it out loud? 24 against 30. White Tigers missing 6 players in a match. The favorites of this match by a long shot. 30 marches missing on the field. And right now, they've been missing about 2 minutes worth of action. And that is 2 minutes too much. What is... I can't even finish that sentence. But go ahead. What's going on? And as I seem to have lost Dragothian for a moment there, we'll try to get back with him in a second. It looks like... Oh, there you are. There you are. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, 6 players missing. Yeah, I was double muted. How about that? So 6 players missing from White Tigers. It's incredible. I mean, you've got 30 reinforcements behind these guys because, just in case those 6 players decided not to show up, you can get 6 players from your pool of 30. And with, just like you said, having 24 out of your 30, I don't know how that happens. And I was staring at this obelisk down here at the bottom that you were talking about taking so long for NcB to capture. I don't understand that either. It's like they forgot to send their tier 1 army to go tap it to start that timer down, because that's just not only taking less time, it's having less time to generate points and less time to generate teleports, but you can't teleport in until it's captured. And as I'm talking about that, a rally is coming to hit it right now.
Is there anything in here?
There because it took so long.
There's nothing in there. Okay, there is. Whew, there's something in there, not enough. What is this guy doing? Marching by this rally, looking at the obelisk that is losing health quickly.
He's got other things to do.
I'm sure he does, but he's about to not be able to teleport. And And now 25 players in the White Tigers side. There are marches coming into this obelisk to try to hold on to it. What? Did this march really turn to hit the rally? No way, NcB.
No.
Don't do this to me. Why you have to be mad? Come on. Get into the building.
Are they looking at the same screen we are? It doesn't look like they are. And just like that,
Oh my
it's in favor
God.
of White Tigers. Wow. So two altars on each side right now in favor of their respective alliances. But Tigers making a huge statement, taking not only that obelisk just a second ago, but also the Shrine of Life just to the left of it. I think that's what had some of these NcB folks a little rattled, getting more and more armies heading that direction. But this obelisk is critically important at the very beginning. Not only did they not send the T1 troops there to capture it right off the bat, but also not saving it when they certainly could have, having 3, 4, 5 armies sitting there either walking by it or attacking the rally instead of getting inside the obelisk. I don't understand. But, they're going to try and get it back here. But that's a pretty sizable rally still inside that obelisk. And with only 2 minutes left to capture it, White Tigers could actually port forward if they wanted to.
Listen, I said this more than once on stream and on cast, as well as in conversations with individuals. And you know what people say when I tell them managing 5 marches isn't easy? They go, nah, it's easy. But these are the folks who usually have their 5 marches right next to each other, marching together on that open field. When you have what NcB did, which is people spreading into buildings, you sometimes forget about that march walking and you're focused somewhere else. Now, the worst part of all of this is there was a guy going to the Shrine of Life who turned towards the desert altar, which means he was there. He was looking at that march, and yet he still said, that rally is not a big deal. And even though White Tigers will not be able to port forward, this is a huge delay on the teleports of NcB. This will allow the 4-player delta that is still in play here to be a little bit less significant early on. And it will allow the folks of White Tigers to position forward much earlier. But remember, 4 governors is 20 marches, and that is a huge blow for the guys at White Tigers, who right now are enjoying a little bit of a good fortune right here that happened to them that offsets the bad fortune of missing 4 players. But there are 48 long minutes remaining in this match, Dragothian.
Yeah, and the longer and longer they don't have those 4 players in, I think, ultimately, even with this setback for the obelisk at the bottom for NcB, ultimately, especially in the middle, I think it's going to play out in favor of NcB. Just not having those 20 armies just on the battlefield is critical, especially considering both of these alliances having pretty much max T5 across the board. Those are T5 armies that can do some serious damage and put out some serious hate that are not there. They're just not there. And without that, as good as White Tigers did to start this match off, not only capturing everything more quickly on their side, but taking 2 opponent buildings right off the bat, and one critical one being that obelisk at the very beginning. This is going to be interesting to see if NcB can take advantage of the opportunity they've got with now 27 players in favor of White Tigers.
So one of the things that really makes my blood boil when it comes to Ark of Osiris is to see marches who have a building being taken down that stop to fight the open field. I'll give you a great example, and I don't really like calling out players, but you have here a Sun Tzu who was marching his way towards the desert altar and decided to stop to fight in the open field instead. Now, I don't know if NcB, because they allied with White Tigers during Lost Kingdom, they are kind of like feeling like they want to feel up the White Tigers in the open field and decided, let's go open field. Ark of Osiris is not a big deal. White Tigers are no joke. They have players who know exactly what they need to do to win the match. They don't care for kills. They don't care for heals. They don't care for anything but winning the match. And it really seems for the past 13 minutes that NcB have not walked into this match wanting to win the match, but rather wanting to put up a fight, which is a very, very different story.
Well, I mean, that's not what this game mode is about. It's a structures game. It's a provisioning game. It's an arc game that needs to be captured, which, by the way, is coming up very soon. I think that just looking at this match, it's almost like two different classes of alliances fighting, which I was kind of struggling to understand. I know that both of these alliances are very large and they have quality players inside of them, but I've not seen NcB play like this. Looking at their previous arc matches, they've been blowing people out, and it hasn't even been close. And then looking to see what they're putting on the stage today, on the screen today, I mean, White Tigers is coming in from behind. Yes, they've got the arc area covered up, as far as the temple is concerned. But from the bottom, here comes some White Tigers looking to do a little sandwich action. Chiskel, King of Armenia, Aeneas de Troy, they're all coming up right from the bottom there, looking to go ahead and do a little maneuver to go ahead and sandwich these guys and ultimately try and probably tap the arc carrier once this thing pops in about a minute.
And King Talib making sure he can be a nuisance on that obelisk at the bottom. I think that's King Talib's like favorite building. King Talib loves to send his marches down there, and he knows that the most likely outcome is he's going to march all the way back to the obelisk. But you know what? I really like that role. I really like the role of a big player who has big troops and who can get his troops wiped out all match long. Most of us in the community know who King Talib is by now. One of the biggest players in the game with a very, very stacked account. He can allow himself to lose 5 marches consistently again and again and again without an issue. And so what he's doing is he's sending them out on this bottom obelisk just to be a pain in the butt and to just piss people off, get NcB a bit off guard. And it's working. It really is. We're seeing them putting so much focus on trying to stop King Talib that they've lost the center almost altogether. And there are even folks standing still. Dragothian, there is people standing still.
I see them.
Next to their own home.
I don't understand either. You've got people just kind of moving left and right and not really moving with any kind of purpose from the red team here. They're on the White Tigers side. So, I mean, I get what they're trying to do and just kind of be a blocker. But at some point, you got to attack something. And right now, even though, the red team was able to go ahead and pick it up, NcB dropped it immediately because guess what? Like we said, those White Tigers came around the bottom of that mountain range and went ahead and hit them right from behind, stopped that movement right in its tracks. And now, like you said, it's going to be anybody's arc at this point because you've got loads of White Tigers in the middle with not enough, it looks like, NcB sitting there ready to go. And then at the very top on their side, now you've got more White Tigers coming into the middle too at the right time. They started those marches probably a minute and a half ago or 2 minutes, so they're arriving just at the right time to be there and be effective and not waste time standing around doing nothing.
It is not anybody's Ark of Osiris. It is Chiskel's Ark of Osiris right now as he is carrying it. And, well, he just lost it. You can see the frowny face making its way back home. But one of the very important things NcB did do is they dropped that Ark on their side. Look at how much ground that gave them. Chiskel practically moved the arc back to where it was supposed to be if they had caught it on their side. So, truthfully, that drop did give NcB just enough time. Look at how many marches are now starting to show up from both sides, and that little delay was super critical for them. And again, the arc drops, but it's once again on the red side, which means for White Tigers, it will take longer, just a little bit longer, 15 seconds to be exact, to be able to march around, unless it's a fast bell series, but more often than not, it's a good between 10 and 15 seconds to march around that temple. NcB are not giving up on this arc, but what it seems like they've given up on is on the points per minute game. And at this point, Dragothian, by the time this arc makes it back home, it will be completely insignificant. It will be there just to close the gap rather than to gain a lead.
Yeah, and if we're looking at this obelisk down here at the bottom too, I mean, this Genghis-led rally is getting swarmed, but I think it may capture that obelisk because, again, another player not reinforcing versus, okay, there it is. There goes the reinforcement. That may be enough to go ahead and stop this Chiskel-led Genghis rally against this YSG-led defense. Yep, looks like it's finally going to go down just in time. That was dangerously close from happening. Hey, stop. Hey, you're muted. You're muted, I believe.
Oh, thank you. I was muted. Oh my goodness gracious. Thank you, Dragotin. You can hear me on Skype, but the folks couldn't hear me. I was saying, it looks like NcB wasn't putting all their eggs in the basket when it comes to the arc. They were just delaying this arc long enough, and they're now rallying every single blue building they can. Two altars look to be very, very successful right now for NcB. And maybe White Tigers focused a little too much on that arc?
We're gonna see. I think that jumping around all these buildings, blinking with again, just to kind of reinforce the fact that now we've got 30 players on each side fighting for their respective alliances, joining a little late on White Tiger's side, but that advantage for NcB is now gone as far as the ability to go ahead and have more players on the battlefield than the White Tigers. So now it comes down to, from an NcB standpoint, we got off to a terrible start. We did not get the plays that we wanted to get done, making that happen. Now we've got to get this arc. Let's get it back towards our side. Let's reset the game, basically, and start focusing on buildings, getting this arc captured, doing a little bit of provisioning. Because, again, I think if NcB can get the arc done, that will kind of reset everything back to square one. And, with having 30-30 at this point, they're going to need to make sure that they execute a whole lot better than they did in the first 10-15 minutes of this match.
Well, we will get rid of a little bit of salt in the chat. There is a lot more in here than just marches walking around the map. It's all about coordination, teamwork, and knowing your role. It is not only just, hey, let's attack this, hey, let's attack that. Arc of Osiris is a mode that is much more complex than it seems. And the fact that people are overlooking the complexity is exactly how you'll never be in Osiris League. This is a game that requires everything. Skill, strategy, coordination, among other things, and a lot of knowledge in the game.
Yeah, the game does. This event mode in particular, this is why it's limited to a certain number of alliances. It gets dwindled to what now is 16 and ultimately less than that now that we've had quite a few matches today. There's only going to be one alliance in the entire game to own the title of Osiris League playoff champion. That's kind of a thing and something that we really should probably focus on at some point as we get closer and closer to it. We've started with hundreds and thousands of alliances that were able to participate, and now we're down to the last 16 and less, and we're looking at the cream of the crop. We're looking at the top of their game, the alliances that have got the power, the strategy, the coordination, the leadership to be in this position. This is kind of a big deal. And now as we're looking at the screen here in the middle, White Tigers pulling that arc back farther and farther. It's probably going to go down. It just went down. Now they're going to pick it back up. They want to pick it up on the top side instead of the bottom side. I don't know why they didn't do that. And then also, again, structures looking like they're blinking as well. This is going to be interesting. Right now, it's even on the altar score. It's even on the obelisks. It's even on the shrines. Everything's equal right now except for the points per minute game because there's some capturing differences. But right now, that arc is going to be a key part to resetting this match for NcB and a key part to widening the gap of this match for White Tigers.
Yes, sir. And somewhere along the way, we lost the arc. There is so much chaos happening here. The arc little logo has disappeared off the screen. We're taking a look at it right now. If we click on it, we can see it marching there. It appears right there. It is being held by an infantry march with a Richard on it. Even though I understand the sentiment and no health, even though I understand the sentiment, there is a caravan right there, and a player who is looking to benefit his alliance a lot more is going into this caravan right now, dropping that arc and letting a faster cavalry march pick it up. He is too slow, and he is leaving plenty of time, 2 minutes and 30 seconds for NcB to try to react to this. NcB decide to react in a more traditional way. They pick up an obelisk away from White Tigers. They take the point per minute game by just about 70 points. But once all these altars lock in favor of NcB, if they end up locking in favor of NcB, the points per minute game is still gonna allow them to stay in this match, and one more arc will probably come out in this match, meaning it's anyone's game still, folks.
Yeah, it's close enough to where we can definitely say that. And, if we're going to capture this arc, that's going to definitely widen the gap. But I think there's still plenty of time left. There's, like you said, provisioning to do. There is structure gains to do. There's altars flipping around on both sides. Red has got 3 altars at the moment, at least in their favor, although this top one looks like it's going to go down in favor of White Tigers because they were able to coordinate enough with a rally and a swarm to take it. That being said, though, altars all over the place blinking. White Tigers trying to take the bottom and the top altars. If they're able to do that, that'll be a 2 altar swing in their favor, at least starting to do a countdown timer in their favor, and certainly not letting NcB and Red start to get some of those critical points from those 2 altars that are being attacked right now.
Yes, sir. And NcB reinforcing that top desert altar for life. And here's the thing, Breezy Place in the chat saying something that I'm very much sympathizing with. I think Tigers are on a lucky day because NcB made mistakes. 26 players shouldn't be. It should be hard for them, but even though they're 26 players, they're still strong. I cannot agree with that more. That bottom obelisk gave White Tigers the breathing room they needed to get their 30 members in. Can you imagine how different this match would have been if NcB had that bottom obelisk early on and the first occupations would have been with 26 or even 25 or whatever it was maybe 27 even against 30. Those first occupations could have flipped this whole game. White Tigers definitely got lucky this time.
Yeah, absolutely. NcB could have had White Tigers on their back foot before they even knew what to do with having that many troops not on the field, capturing buildings, capturing, area on the battlefield and positioning themselves. They dropped the ball. There's no other way to describe it. Not capturing that obelisk as soon as they possibly could and kind of letting it float in the wind over there was a critical mistake. And then not, once identifying that problem, addressing it with the armies that were around that obelisk was a huge blunder. And that's what's led to this huge delta now having that arc captured in favor of White Tigers.
And I can tell you this for a fact, White Tigers are thanking all the gods for giving them this little break. I think it's to be honest with you, on the one hand, I feel bad for NcB, even though they had that extra lead, they had that extra advantage by the grace of fate, but they just weren't able to capitalize on it. I think someone needs to thank their lucky charm today on the side of Tigers because, man, oh man, this could have been so much different.
Yeah, I'm just kind of shocked that like you said, NcB wasn't able to take advantage of that. But we're in the spot that we're in, and there's altars blinking for sure that we should be looking at right here on the bottom, just underneath the arc. As soon as we're back in, we'll be able to show that to you. There is a scrum like crazy around this desert altar in favor of NcB right now, but being defended against not only a massive rally from White Tigers, but also a heavy swarm in favor of White Tigers. So it looks like there's enough NcB here to really defend this as long as they don't decide to not keep reinforcing, which they just did reinforce again. So they're doing the right thing. I think they will keep it. Right now it's evened up. Half the map is on each side of the Alliance's favor, with 590 points per minute in favor of NcB and 440 per minute in favor of White Tigers. But with White Tigers having that roughly 5,500 point lead, it'll be hard to come back from. They're going to need to capture an arc and definitely capture a building or two and heavily provision if they want to go ahead and make some moves.
And so I think that it's very important to point out in here, and I'm looking at the Desert Altar still because I really want to see how focused NcB can be if they they don't keep their eye on the ball being the Desert Altar, and they go for the honey trap of open field combat, and they lose this Desert Altar having a scrum nearby of troops. This will truly be I think one of the first nails on the coffin, showing that truthfully NcB are not playing their best match right now. That altar is so low on health, and look at how many red marches are nearby fighting in the open field instead of reinforcing it. There goes the building that was ticking points for them.
Wow.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 armies in here, and the honey trap of open field combat was real. Sure, they're going to swarm this building and take it back. But that's 3 minutes without 150 points. That's 450 points out the window. I'm glad you like your honey, because right underneath it comes the sticky pad. And once you stick into it, you're donezo.
Yeah, being 5,800 points behind with that kind of thing happening on your respective side, that's not a good combination. I mean, there is battles happening everywhere. This is one that's going to, again, get swarmed down and retaken. But just like you said, the point's gone for 4 minutes. So, what are you supposed to do? You've got altars blinking all over the place. They are, in fact, trying to take multiple altars away from White Tigers at the same time. The left one not looking so good in favor of NcB just because there's a lot of reinforcements from King of Armenia, from Aeneas, from Mex, from Chiskel coming in to reinforce that altar. And I know they know how to reinforce an altar and use that defense to its fullest benefit. When you're inside a structure, guys, you've got more troops to play with. So if you've got a swarm happening and you've got a 300,000 fully loaded up, 310,000 fully loaded up army, heading a structure that's got 1.8 million troops or 1 million troops or 800,000 troops, that's going to be a significant damage to that single army. You've got to keep boosting the reinforcements of those structures to be viable in this level of the game. You have to make sure that you're reinforcing and debuffing and making sure that you have the open field one around these structures, or else you will not keep them at this level of the game.
King of Armenia, Chiskel Gaming, and Rhaegal, 3 individuals who know how to win this game, who are here to win. They're not here to rack up insignificant kills which get zeroed once you dip out of this arc. Truthfully, nothing carries over out of this Ark of Osiris battlefield with the exception of one thing: win or loss. All your kills, all your woundeds, all your lag, all your game crashes, nothing comes out of the Ark of Osiris at the end of the day but either a win or a loss. And I still see NcB not really going for the primary target, which is the points per minute, which is winning the match. In less than 3 minutes, an Ark of Osiris will pop up, and the points per minute are still looking decent for the folks in NcB who do have one outpost favoring them right now, and they're really working on that desert altar up on the top. But White Tigers have such a huge presence in the center right now that right now it looks good. But we've seen what happens with alliances that make their way into the center too early. Is 2 minutes and 30 seconds too early, Dragothian?
No, it's not. I will say, especially with the way it is now, they're holding their own with their defensive structures. They do have that one altar you were looking at that is in jeopardy, but for the most part, you're right there at your obelisk. It's not going to be too hard to reinforce from the cities that are sitting there. All the other structures are not blinking. They're in good shape. I say, 2 minutes, position yourself, get rolling. That way you can do another quick capture. If you're already in the lead, this may be a time to go ahead and keep that arc and hold it for that stash at the end of the day. Bring it all the way back to the base. Don't waste marches sitting around it. I did want to bring up a comment that came in into the chat where they said that they may not be able to put armies into a building that they're around, and that's why they're swarming the rallies and the armies that are around a structure they're trying to defend, because they've already got an army in there. Well, the answer to that, obviously, is as that army gets low inside that structure, you pull that army out, reinforce it with a full one, and now you're back in the game on that reinforcement. You're back in the building, having a full army, raising the troop count, and you're already doing some significantly more damage because you've raised the troop count by 200, 250K. That's the game. You need to rotate. You cannot just have one army in there and say, okay, I've reinforced, my job is done. At this level, you can't do that. You need to have rotation. You need to make sure that you have the proper reinforcements coming in alongside of the proper commanders, stopping that building from swapping to the opponent's side.
Yes, sir. And I'd like to first of all thank the community for choosing to watch us today. We have been putting a lot of time and effort into perfecting our craft with the Osiris League cast. We always want to hear your feedback. if you guys have any comments, questions, anything you want, not only about the technical aspects of which matches we watch and what you guys see on the screen, but what are things that you guys want us to discuss more that happen on the field? What are things that are a little bit less clear, things you prefer, things you don't like? Again, our links to our channels are in the description below. Come into the Discords, wherever you can catch us. Give us that feedback. As we've proven to you, every single piece of feedback that is feasible for us to improve that comes from you guys, we will do from the bottom of our hearts. We're here to make this Osiris League cast the best possible. And again, we really thank every single one of you for choosing to be with us right now. And of course, don't forget to smash a like on that stream. With that being said, Dragothian double muted again. We're going to give him a second to unmute. This match is the muting match of hell. And there it is.
Yeah, that's how we do it around here. So, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And we're definitely happy to be doing this. This is one of the most exciting parts of my Sunday. I get the kids out of the house for one. And then secondly, I get to watch these matches with you all and cast them and talk with you about them and help educate and show some strategy being unveiled on the battlefield, with Gecko leading the way, having us being able to drive the match from a visual perspective, and then we can go back and forth and show you guys what's happening in real time. And speaking of real time, that Desert Altar did go back in favor of NcB, so now the altars are evened out from a captured standpoint, with NcB having a slight lead of 60 points per minute at this point. And this is kind of exactly what they needed to do. They needed to get some altars back. They need to start pushing on some of these altars as well. And then on top of that, really start to make that arc a real emphasis. And it looks like they're kind of trying to do that, but the arc is neutral at this point. Nobody's got it.
I'll tell you what, one of the recurring themes I'm seeing in NcB quite significantly is one of the most annoying mechanics in this game is once the march you targeted is donezo, you get sent back home. Now, when you target an open field battle, what you do is essentially, I keep seeing NcB marches going back and then stopping themselves and turning around. NcB had a nice little cluster of marches on top of that Ark of Osiris, and they had everything they needed to create a cluster to slowly march that arc. We've talked about the slow arc marches quite a bit to make the little moves. When you have more marches on the field than your opposition, you can allow yourself to do what they're doing right now, which is small movements, small improvements towards your side. Even though you're getting chunked down by the one or two marches in there, the red team, as of that moment of the finishing of that sentence, were in the lead in terms of the presence, but they just didn't capitalize on it. And now White Tigers are starting to show presence in the center. I am seeing a Saladin KK march making its way down the field, and all the red cluster staying up on the top, fighting in the open field. But the arc has left. What are you fighting?
Exactly right. And this is the same thing they've been doing the whole match, hasn't it?
It is.
Hasn't it been? I mean, we're looking at these open field fights and being like, okay, so you need to be here. This is plain to see. You got the arc coming this way. You need to run it into support. And now White Tigers has it and ran it back just a little bit, because why not? They're NcB is fighting other people, three army lengths away, and not taking care of that arc and running it back even further. It's a matter of distance. It's a game of distance right now. Right now, White Tigers are definitely helping their case by doing those little plays that help delay that arc capture.
And again, it seems like NcB cannot... I don't know if this is intentional. I feel like at this point, they're having a bad day. I feel like at this point, they're just having a bad day. This is not NcB, because they have been given so many opportunities to capitalize on not mistakes, but on decisions that White Tigers have made. And they haven't been able to capitalize on any decision that White Tigers have made, as well as on their mistakes. The first few minutes with the individuals missing, and then the fact that the White Tigers took a little bit of time to get it here into the center. That was a decision based on the fact that they're losing the buildings game right now. And it seems like NcB are not able to find those seconds of a lead that they can have to make a move. And look, they're doing it right now. There's a red cluster and an arc moving. But why is the red cluster not on top of that arc, defending it with their own bodies so it's unclickable, rather than fighting, as you said, 3, even 4 marches length away? I don't get this. Chiskel just sneaking through everything, found the march, hitting it down. And NcB,
Yep.
at least they own 3 altars. That's a good news.
Yeah, and I will say, having those 3 altars and then, looking at the screen here, I mean, there's quite a bit of red. I'm kind of surprised that they were able to those altars or defend them with having this much raw troop power around the arc. It looks like they are going to be able to squeeze out there at least for a little bit and try and capture this. It's slowly making its way back, and wow, it's going slowly. When I say slowly, it's going slowly for sure, but they're heading their way back past that outpost to hopefully capture it. That will bring the NcB red team a little closer, getting within striking distance of being able to catch up from White Tigers. And with 20 minutes left, there is still plenty of time to make this happen. And also, just to address one of the questions, the chat again, just kind of keeping my eye on that as Gecko's doing his piece. Just to reinforce, it is very, very difficult to control 5 armies at the same time while you're doing stuff. Having been inside of Osiris League matches myself on a very powerful team that is known for winning and known for doing plays like this to make things happen, it's difficult, especially if you're doing multiple roles at once. But I think what White Tigers has been able to do is simplify the use of those 5 armies and have them all do one thing instead of splitting them up and doing one provisioning and one holding a building and doing this and one being over here. That's when it becomes complicated. But if you can focus those 5 armies on the one task at hand, one objective at hand, it becomes a lot simpler and actually a lot more forceful.
What's interesting to see is that the folks of NcB did lose that top desert altar. That was the worst one for them to lose. It was the one ticking for points for them. The other one they had at the time in their favor wasn't ticking for points. Now it is. This is how they have the point per minute lead. For the record, for the folks in the chat, what we've been doing, as you've noticed from Dragothian, is as one speaks, the other one keeps an eye on the chat. And I can tell Shashank I have a 2-liter water bottle next to me, and that's not enough to cool me down at this stage because, the folks of NcB have reached out and said, are we gonna get a chance at the cast? We wanna get casted. We wanna show the community what we're about. Unfortunately, throughout the time of the earlier group stages, we didn't have that opportunity, and I was so happy that we do not have a choice on this match, right? We don't have to take a look at a different match right now. We can focus strictly on these guys. And the reason I'm so passionate about it is because I know NcB can capitalize and do much better than they're doing right now. They're such a strong alliance, but it seems like they're just having a day off.
Yeah, it was just a slow start. And, having captured that arc just about 30 seconds ago, they've pulled within striking distance. So roughly 2,200 points or so. That's one arc. That's less than one arc. That's some provisioning getting done. And if they can keep their side of the field, which it looks like they're really starting to do, especially if they decide at this altar that we're looking at to put some reinforcements in the building, then they will definitely hold that too. If they don't, though, Tigers will go ahead and take that. And it's just going to depend on if they do it. I mean, right now, I don't see any reinforcements. And sure enough, there it goes. Again, same thing happening. So, again, I think we just need to send a carrier pigeon over to the NcB folks just to tell them to reinforce their stuff whenever they're in that situation, because that's 3 or 4 times a building has swapped to White Tiger's color when it not need to. They had plenty of armies around there to reinforce. Even if it's 50K, that's 50K more troops that White Tigers has to plow through so that other reinforcements can continue to pour in as well. That's how the bigger alliances and the better coordinated alliances are able to really keep all the buildings on their side, having a super tanky garrison commander set up with another secondary commander to that group that's also good for damage. And then finally, having the knowledge of understanding that you can pull an army out to put an army in. And if you're around there and you don't have an army inside of that structure, you better get your butt in there so that you can help defend that, because that's a 3-4 minute swing of points not generating for you. And if you can't capture it, then you're going to give more points to the opponent.
Feels Frenchman mad, doesn't even begin to contest it. Why am I getting frustrated? The frustration is not because of wanting either team to win. The frustration comes from the very basic mistakes, and let me explain to you what I mean by that. You see this altar, it is red, right? It is back to being red. It was an insta pickup back for NcB. The problem is this building always was taking in favor of NcB. It never for a second ticked for points for the White Tigers. But what it did do is the moment that building was taken away from NcB, even though they instantly took it back, that's 3 minutes where the White Tigers took a lead in the points per minute game. Now, for me, either team winning is unbelievably fun because I want to see both of them on the next stage, both the folks from White Tigers as well as NcB. I would have loved to see them both make it, but unfortunately, the reality is one is going home today, and my frustration comes from there were so many alliances throughout time who fought hard to get here. And these are very small mistakes that I just don't know. I just don't know what to do about them. It is frustrating. I believe there are so many good alliances who would want to be in this position and would want to not make these very basic mistakes. And that's where the frustration comes from. For me, who wins or who loses truly makes no difference.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the game as through a commentator, there's a couple things that we want to make sure we convey. We want to make sure that it's entertaining, and that's not the first and foremost, but that is a thing. And then secondly, and I think the most important, is that we showcase what right looks like and what right doesn't look like. And right now, again, we continue to see some really, really good things coming from NcB, but then some glaring mistakes that are really causing them to be, almost 3,000 points behind at this point. It was a game of it's a game of inches, it's a game of points, and they're just giving up these inches and giving up these points willingly. Like there's things they can immediately do to address this. Like you can understand what's happening right now and fix it immediately, and it stops happening. Like those are the kinds of mistakes that are being made on the NcB side, and White Tigers is taking full advantage of them. Now at the same time, I mean, again, they've got their side locked back up again. They're still not generating the full points because of that mistake. And being that 3,000 points behind at this point, that was 450 minutes at that point. This happened 3 other times, so now we're talking roughly 1,800 points. That puts us really close to that 3,000 point marker. And with the arc coming up in 2 minutes, with 13 minutes 45 to go, that could be the difference. That really could be the difference. That's why it's so frustrating.
Yes, sir. And one thing to point out that Skywalker said in the chat that I definitely agree with. He said that the fact that NcB is slipping and White Tigers aren't capitalizing on it enough is a very, very true statement. The bottom line here is NcB indeed are slipping here and there. However, the folks of White Tigers don't seem to be capitalizing on that just as much as in the beginning the folks from NcB weren't able to capitalize on the slips by White Tigers. So in that sense, I do agree with Skywalker right there that indeed White Tigers should not be this close compared to the mistakes that are being made by NcB. And so I wonder if there is something we're not aware of, perhaps a little bit of lag issues, which caused the problem early on, perhaps a little bit of connectivity issues. We're going to try to figure that one out at the end of this cast. And if we can give you guys any more information about how this came about, if there was an extenuating factor causing this situation, we will keep you posted in the next match that we will be casting if that was the case. Now, as Dragothian double mutes once again, we're looking down at the Shrine of Life down at the bottom. King Talib doing massive work on that Shrine of Life, and he's not really going to take it. There is plenty of reinforcements all over the place, and I actually really dig this march, this cavalry march coming out of these provisions going to hit, perhaps going back to the provisions. But Dragothian, 3 red altars, and in 10 seconds, the Ark of Osiris comes up, and the cloud of damage and people and madness is just, whew.
Well, they recognize for sure that the arc is definitely the next play. And we've got, just under 12 minutes left. I think it's going to take every second of that, 11 minutes, 30 seconds to make the arc go where either one of these teams want it to go. And there's not going to be an opportunity here to hold the arc for a win at the end, because it's going to take every single troop from either side of this scrum that's in the middle to make it move in any particular direction. There's sad faces going back for both sides. It's just absolute mayhem at this point. This is where you want all of your armies in the middle. This is what I was talking about before, where you've got 5 armies, target them on one target, and drop that target, move on to the next, move on to the next, move on to the next. That's the game. That's how you start whittling down a massive red in favor of your side instead of their side. I mean, this is going to be down to the wire. And we see the obelisk down at the bottom blinking. Let me just check that out. It's a single rally. It's going to go down. No problem there. Let's sit tight at the arc for sure and see if we can see who's going to take the advantage right now with, again, White Tigers having that advantage, having it go back. It was very difficult to click that arc carrier and drop him, and he was able to make some pretty good headway.
He didn't only make great headway, he recognized that the folks from NcB were collected at the bottom red side of this altar, of this Temple of Osiris. And so the capture came from the top right. Lazy Me picked it up and pretty much had a clean march all the way almost to the end of the mountains. And right now, the backstab coming in from the Lazy Piggy, making his way towards this arc carrier that is making a substantial move. And it drops the arc. We're starting to see more red in the sea of blue. And right now the name of the game for the folks of NcB is delay until they can get their forces in here. Because right now it's a sea of blue with red dots all over. But it looks like the sea of red is on its way. And the blue folks are going to have a much harder time in order to get this back.
Yeah, just zooming out a little bit kind of tells the tale. There's quite a few blue here, and also some red strategically placed. You know, the arc is down at the moment, but there's so much blue sitting here right now. I think that they should be able to kind of ninja grab this. Again, do it from the direction that you're trying to go towards so that you get that initial skip over towards the direction you're going. And right now, NcB was like, no, we're not going to let that happen. Grabbed it, dropped it. It's going to, like I said, this thing is not going to get captured anytime soon, even though White Tigers was able to really make a good headway for their side. And with really looking at the points per minute score too, but just under 9 minutes, 740 to 440, that's a 300 per minute delta. And with 8 minutes roughly to go, that's 2,400 points. And if we look at the difference between the scores, guys, it's about 2,500 points.
It's going to go so tight. Now, one of the people who I had not had the ability yet to convince of the magic that is provisioning is our friend Chiskel Gaming. And so if he is as influential as he always was in his alliances, we will be seeing White Tigers with less provisioning on their strategy. And if the NcB folks capitalize on it, it could actually be what changes this game. You can see that lead is slowly dwindling down, like you said. And there are, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there should be still one more building. No, all buildings are locked in. All buildings are ticking for points. The Lazy Piggy moving that arc back towards the red side just a little bit, just causing a mayhem right here. Again, Red March about to pick up this arc once again. Another slip right there into the bottom side towards red. They're trying to take this arc and dip out. He cancels the pickup, and King Bob does not. King Bob making a fantastic move, doing what you said previously. He picked up the arc.
How fast it's going.
Yes, he picked up the arc from the top, and he is dipping. And there weren't enough red teams anywhere nearby to do anything. And Red March just working backwards as the arc goes by. Oh, no. Red March right here. Wait, what? Did I see a Red March? Yeah? No? Nope. Well, what is going on?
Wow. This is a move. King Bob with a ninja grab, making his way back to the outpost, and really like a runner in a football game, just breaking away from the second level, linebackers, cornerbacks. He is rolling. I have not seen an army move that fast in quite some time. This Alex army may go down a little too quick. Ooh, this is going to be tight. We do have some more red armies coming, but that was a major, major win in favor of White Tigers for that army to bring the arc that far. And I think the arc is going to be the thing that wins this match one way or another. If Tigers can capture it, I think they win. If they don't capture it, I think they may lose.
I cannot agree with you more. Now you can see forever from NcB going towards that outpost. The arc was picked up by NcB and instantly dropped. Now NcB need to push up. NcB cannot allow this arc to move forward even further. In the points per minute game, they win this game. If it's a matter of an arc, oh my goodness, I thought that the outpost did go into the red team. Forever taking that outpost and making a little bit of a situation here. Zeno is moving sideways, giving NcB a little more room to make it in, getting out of the cluster, which means he is clickable and easy to track. Look at all the red marches already on their way to him. Zeno, what is going on? Instead of staying in this corridor of marches, Zeno hangs a left or right, better said, and that makes him clickable. And NcB are swarming in. NcB have to stop this arc. If they stop the arc, if the arc doesn't get picked up, they have a huge chance to win. The problem is the distance between the outpost and the arc is very, very small, and the time is 5 long minutes of fighting in here. All that White Tigers got to do is one step at a time.
Yep, Shanazon picking up that arc with her Richard and there and going right instead of left to capture the arc to somewhere. There's not much there to capture. There's red buildings all in that direction. I don't know where that arc was headed, but it wasn't towards the right location for sure. Again, it's dropped, and I think what NcB is doing right now is just trying to capture all the structures, and they just did it. They just took the Shrine of War as White Tigers just walk right by it, right to the left. That shrine is gone. That's not a place where you can take it. They're attacking that outpost to the top. That's about to go down maybe, although it looks like everybody's starting to move in favor of hitting those armies, and that arc is slowly trying to make its way to that outpost. My goodness. This is it. This is 4 minutes left. This arc needs to go in favor of White Tigers. There's a 600-point delta with a 360 points per minute difference in favor of NcB with 4 minutes left. Unless they have some massive provisions on the back end, White Tigers need this arc to win.
And the worst part is that hang of a right that they did meant that now that whole cluster has to move right in order for this arc to be able to move anywhere. It was a very interesting play. I don't really understand what it was supposed to be. Chiskel trying to pick up the arc, I believe, from the side that is closer to the outpost device. That gives him a couple of extra inches, which is a good thing. But now Red has very strong presence here, and now Red knows it's all in here or anything. And listen, within less than a minute, they will take the lead away from White Tigers. NcB holding onto the arc, marching it back. They need to stay within this cluster. Do not make the same mistake White Tigers did and take that arc out of the cluster. The moment that arc moves out of the cluster, just like I can click it, everybody else can too. And that means all these blue marches are going to target it straight up. Never leave a cluster. It's better to stay in. And there it goes. It's better to stay within the cluster than to expose your march and make it very easy to click. NcB going for the outpost though, and that outpost is very low on health. That outpost is about to go down. NcB swarming it and about to pick it up. Is this a thing? Dragothian.
Yeah.
I'm starting to sweat. What is going on? 2.5 minutes remaining, and in less than 20 seconds, 2, 1, and the lead goes in the favor of NcB right now.
Wow.
2 minutes and 17 seconds remaining. Arc is neutral. And listen, this is a 4,000 point Arc of Osiris. Theoretically, if there are enough provisions out there, theoretically it's still doable for the folks of NcB. If they have enough provisions out there, 2,000 or 3,000 points, plus this extra lead that they have on the points per minute, they could still close the gap a 4,000 point Arc of Osiris can bring them, the folks of White Tigers. So much
Gecko,
NcB
let's
here.
not joke. Let's not joke. The arc is what wins this match.
For sure. For sure.
The arc is it. I know that there's a chance, but this is the 100% chance. If White Tiger can capture that building, which they just did, they got it back from NcB. If they can move that arc closer and closer, which is what they are doing. We got a minute and a half left. They're inside the scrum. They cannot be clicked. If that thing captures,
It's over.
White Tigers wins. Wow, it's literally right there. Does it drop or does it cap?
A minute and 15 seconds
does
remaining.
Does it drop or does it cap?
It caps. And a minute left in the match.
Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, White Tigers avoiding. They dodged a bullet. They dodged not only a bullet, they dodged a series of bullets that came from NcB. Listen, NcB had everything they needed to win this match. Truthfully, They had the lead of players at the beginning. They had the lead in the buildings for quite some time. They allowed the buildings to get overturned over and over. And now White Tigers are just retreating. They're done for. They know they won. They don't need to be in this cluster of fights.
Back to our base.
Let's go back to our base. It's over, really. Again, you might see a little bit of extra points coming up, maybe if there are some provisions. But again, the 3,600 points lead that the folks of White Tigers have cannot be closed by provisions at this stage. Maybe it'll become a little bit closer. 10 seconds remaining. Oh, I'm sweating.
Wow. Let's chalk it up, man. Good game and well played to both sides as we count down to the end of this epic match.
And GG's to the folks of NcB and White Tigers. Let's get a spam of GG's in the chat, folks, as this was one of the most intense matches we got to see in some time, and it was unbelievable. Our friend right here, H. Panigma, is the champion of Egypt. Let's go take a look at the stats really quickly and see if they tell us a story right here.
I think there's only one score that matters on this ticket, and it's at the very top.
Yes, sir, it is. It is truthfully disappointing to see once again provisions being neglected. It is. You've seen firsthand how important they are, and you've seen how matches as close as these ones can be determined by that. If we go and look back at the previous match we were casting, 4,300 points worth of provisions, that would have won the game for NcB, for example. And NcB had, for the longest time, 20 plus marches available. Those 20 plus marches could have provisioned while waiting for the arc and then gone to the center. We saw how critical those are, and it's unfortunate that both these alliances didn't give him enough credit. White Tigers with very little, well, a decent amount of healing compared to NcB, who really healed almost 10 million troops. What else are we seeing here that is worth pointing out?
Well, just looking at that last minute and a half to 2 minutes, that was obviously the critical pivot point for the entire match. And even with the mistakes, NcB had put themselves into a spot where they could really do it. They could pull it off, and they did everything right at the end. And that's really what mattered. So they took all the buildings around the arc carrier. They repeatedly took that outpost over and over and over again. The only mistake I saw that they made at the end was not reinforcing that outpost. That was their lock. That was their linchpin. Just like whenever you're in other parts of the game where you are rallying something and you're continually adding reinforcements as you destroy it, like a Crusader fort or a level 5 pass or what have you. You wanted to have, there were so many armies there. All they had to do, because there's no way that arc carrier could have gone anywhere else. They captured all the other buildings. And even if they didn't, it would have taken too long for that arc carrier to physically walk over to a Shrine of War or an obelisk or another outpost. All you had to do was just keep filtering all 40 of those armies that you had there, right? If you're red, just keep filtering them into that outpost over and over and over and over, and you would never have lost that outpost, and they would never have been able to cap it. Again, hindsight being 2020, that's why we're able to look like the heroes and the big, the guys that know everything. And, in the heat of the moment, again, controlling multiple armies, just sitting there staring at the arc as it's going closer and closer and closer to that outpost held by White Tigers, and ultimately Tigers capturing that. King Bob has a huge medal for bringing the arc that far to be. And I didn't see who ended up capping it at the end, but whoever did that did exactly the right thing too. Like you said, they stayed inside that scrum and just kind of John Wicked their way through the whole thing and decided to go ahead and capture it in heartbreaking fashion for those NcB folks.
You know, I think I disagree with your analysis about that outpost, and I'll tell you why. There are so many blue marches out there that can surround it, and we're talking 310 tier 5s, 310,000 tier 5s at a time, while that outpost can only hold 500,000 troops. And you cannot double up on troops in there, which means you need to get your troop out and get another troop in. And it's the amount of damage that 10 marches that can, I believe that's the maximum that can surround a building. 10 marches, 3.1 million tier 5s against the 500 tier 5s, 500k tier 5s. I don't think you have enough time to make all the on-screen actions you need to make to pull out one march and then put in another one fast enough. That's the only reason is because of the 500,000, in my opinion. If it was a little bit more, then it would have worked.
I know if anybody in here knows that should work, it should be you, because I was able to hold the outpost for a full minute with just me and one other player with a Richard Charles against a full swarm of T5 players back in the day. So that should have worked. It should have worked. I'm standing by it. 100%.
The commander's difference and the amounts of tier 5s on the field and the types of troops that were swarming. There is a pretty big debate on how to compare that, right? You were a full tier 5 player. We don't know how many tier 4s were swarming you in there. I don't know whether this would work or not. I think that I'll play devil's advocate just for the fun of playing devil's advocate, kind of show the other side of the coin of this situation. But yeah, with that being said, any final thoughts before we go to the final farewell here?
Yeah, no final of the day. Again, we've just got so many good matches this Sunday. It's been an amazing day for Osiris League and an amazing day for battle in general inside of Rise of Kingdoms. I cannot wait for this last match. It's going to be a doozy. Man, we've already been so hyped and thrilled up between all the matches that have already happened. Congratulations to everybody who has won today, and congratulations again. Good game and well played to the alliances that ended up losing. The majority were in nail-biting fashion at the end, and you put up a great fight for everybody to see. Can't wait for this last match, though, in a few hours.
Yes, sir, Dragothian. I'll see you in a few hours. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I look forward to
at the end of the day, these matches were excellent
matches.
I'm looking forward to seeing this next match coming up between 93 and 1 NB8. This is going to be a very, very solid match to end our evening on. As soon as Gecko gets undouble muted, I'll turn it back over to him. And just looking at the screen, right, we've got the breakdown of Osiris League. It's amazing. It's just amazing.
So funny story, Dragothian. You couldn't actually hear me because for the first time ever, I decided to be considerate and mute Skype while I flipped the mic so it doesn't squeak in your ears. I unmuted the stream, but definitely did not unmute you. Apologies for that. So thank you very much, Dragothian. This match is not only one of the craziest matches we've seen today. It's by far the one where the mute button really, really killed us today. Dragothian, thank you very much, man.
Always glad to join you.
Folks, this about wraps up our double header. Big GGs to the folks of OV and White Tigers. It looks like the blue teams were successful in this double header. Chat, thank you very much for being here. Thank you guys for your continued support, for being an awesome community. Before you leave and drop the stream, smash a like on it. It helps out a lot to let Lilith know you guys are enjoying this type of stuff. If you want us to get an even further more sophisticated Osiris League cast coming up on the next season, make sure you voice your opinion, voice your need and demand for a better cast where you can have multiple casts, multiple matches at the same time, more manpower, more casters, and more overall. Thank you guys very much for being here. This was brought to you by Lilith Gaming, as well as the content creators, the sponsored content creators by Rise of Kingdoms. You guys have a great rest of your day. We'll see you in about 4 hours for the final match of the day. 1093 versus 1 NB8. The third Alliance out of Kingdom 103 coming out strong, and they are a dark horse against one of the biggest alliances in the game. You guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in a few hours. Peace.